Preet is right. What we have seen happen here is the president completely not just chip away at the wall, but breach the wall between DOJ and the White House on an investigation that reaches directly into the White House. And we saw that with imploring Jim Comey to drop the Michael Flynn investigation and then firing him when he didn't, with trying to goad Attorney General Sessions into reinitiating an investigation of his former adversary, of trying to bully AG Sessions into resigning when he was upset that he didn't have someone he had appointed in charge of the Russia investigation, which by itself is a stunning thought, that he thinks that he should be in charge of whoever it is that's in charge of the Russia investigation. This is just not how it works or how it's supposed to work.
Well,
it's the one thing,
Yeah.
I don't know how Jeff Sessions is doing on a lot of different things, and I knew him from my time in the Senate also. But the one thing we know as a documented fact that he did correctly in consultation with the career ethics people at the department was to recuse himself from the Russia investigation. And that is the one thing.
It was kind of a no-brainer. But
Correct. But it's the one thing that he, right, and it's the one thing that the President of the United States says is the reason why he doesn't want the guy around. That is the kind of thing that I think Sally and I are talking about. Because those are the things we know that he's saying out loud. What I don't know, and what we don't know, is how many other things are there that the president doesn't like, either wants to go after somebody or wants people not to go after somebody because they're an ally, where there are malleable people in different places, because it's a difficult thing to resist any president, and it's a difficult thing to resist a bullying, maniac of a president like I think we're beginning to get here.
Well, before I go to where I want to go next, let me just ask, as you look at the earlier stuff, Flynn, Sessions, Comey, do you feel confident in saying aloud that all we're seeing so far is breaching and trampling of norms, or can we point to anything that is arguably breaching and trampling of a law?
Well, there's a guy looking at that, Bob Mueller, we don't know.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people are sort of putting all their hopes into Bob Mueller. And, I've got tremendous confidence in Bob Mueller. And I tell you, if anybody can get to the bottom of what happened here, and if anybody will call it straight about whether or not there were crimes committed, it's going to be Bob Mueller. But the fact of the matter is, he's going to determine whether there's proof beyond a reasonable doubt that felonies were committed, that crimes were committed that could be used for prosecution or impeachment. He is not going to answer the question whether anything bad happened here. I think sort of my perspective is we already know some bad stuff happened just with the things that Preet and I have already talked about. And surely our standard of conduct for our president, of what's acceptable to us, is not just like anything short of a felony is okay. I mean, surely this standard is higher than that.
What was your knee-jerk reaction, both of you? What was your knee-jerk reaction to the Comey firing? First 5 minutes.
So I was giving a speech at the time, and someone, and it was a Q&A period, and a federal judge asked me the question, hypothetically, what would be your reaction if the president were to fire Jim Comey? And I had not seen the news, and he was cheating, and he had seen the news. And I said, well, I don't really think that's going to happen. That seems outrageous. And then someone else said, Preet, it's not a hypothetical. That just happened. So my reaction was a negative one.
Did you instinctively feel like a bridge had been crossed, a line had been crossed?
Yeah,
we don't see that. That doesn't happen in our country,
Look, it made me think that the President of the United States, going back to these norms issues, is capable in anger, whether it's related to the Russia investigation or not, is capable of doing a lot of stuff that people might not have predicted. Look, I agreed to stay. I had a family meeting, and we discussed, the president, and he was not a popular figure. I have a 16-year-old daughter. He was not a popular figure in my home when he got elected. But I thought, and I believe still, that U.S. attorneys do not serve the president, although we serve at the pleasure of the president. And my job was about following the Constitution in an independent way, and if someone was going to let me do that, then it was the honor of my life to do it, and I was going to keep doing it. And I didn't predict, and people in my home didn't predict, the kinds of things I think, even though I know there's an argument to say like it was all laid bare and you should have known given all the conduct during the campaign, I really think that certain things that he has done, including the way he fired Jim Comey, particularly given what we know now, when there was objection to this by, among other people, Steve Bannon, who, Steve Bannon saying don't do this thing. And he said, I'm going to do it. I mean, that's crazy. I'm going to do it anyway. What I'm worried about is I have no expectation on issues of independence and the rule of law that Donald Trump will be guided by anything other than, in the moment anger and personal interest. And that's a kind of scary place to be.
Sally, what did you think of the Comey firing when you first heard of it?
Well, if you'll recall, back when it first happened, there was an evolving explanation as to what...
There was a different explanation every day of the week.
As to why he was fired. First, it was because of Comey's conduct in the Hillary Clinton investigation. And then I believe the president did an interview with Lester Holt where he just right out of the gate said it was that Russia thing.
Yeah.
And I wanted
contradicting
to
his own spokesman, yeah.
You can't fire Jim Comey because of that Russia thing. I mean, that's problematic when, that sort of is the ultimate example to me. I say you can't do it. I mean, he did. But again, that violates those norms that we were talking about. So, I mean, that's really troubling.
Everybody,
To state the obvious.
It seems like everybody always wants to know, is Mueller going to get Trump? And I actually have always thought that the better question is Trump going to get Mueller? I mean, do you think Mueller and that investigation are safe and, safe from, let's call it outside interference? What do you think?
Hard to know the answer to that. I mean, one of the things...
You were sitting here
I'm supposed to know the answer.
6 months ago, you were number 2 in the Justice Department. Now you're saying you literally do not know whether this investigation is safe from our own president.
Well, let's hope that it is, because I think of what the public reaction would be and should be to that, and even what the reaction would be in Congress. I mean, think back to the Russia sanctions. If you recall, when Congress passed the legislation for the sanctions, they also included in there a provision that essentially prevented the president from reversing that. That's a reflection to me, or at least a hopeful note, that Congress gets how serious this is. And look, regardless of what your political affiliation here, whether you're Democrat or Republican or independent, we all ought to really care about a foreign adversary messing in our elections. And so that's a place where I am hopeful that people can put politics aside and protect the integrity of that investigation.
Preet, do you think the Mueller investigation